I created a fun little summer scene with an 80s retro vibe. Hey everyone, it's Joy here and welcome to my channel. I'll be using the Summer Treats die. I'm going to use those 3 pieces and that super cute die from scrapbook.com. And I'm using Sunshine Smooth Cardstock. And I will also be using the Hello Summer stamp and coordinating die. I've got some fun little images and the sentiment. So I have a piece of scratch paper and I'm going to lay my little strips of paper that I already cut from the Sunshine Smooth Cardstock. Now, 2 of the strips measure 3/4 of an inch, a little bit bigger than 3/4 of an inch. And then the other 3 are about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just lining this up at the bottom. I put my adhesive down and I'm going to place these in. Now I am creating ocean and a sunset essentially with these colors. And then we're going to use the die cut from the Summer Treats to die cut these fun strips of paper in this fun retro 80s kind of stripe pattern. So once I get all of these laid down, and I have to just move them a little bit. I didn't want any white in between. Then I can bring in the die cut. Now this pattern paper is really thin, so I did use a little bit of a thicker piece of white cardstock behind it. And then when you do that, you want to make sure you don't have 2 thick pieces of cardstock. So if your colored cardstock is thicker, use a thin piece of paper behind it because you want your die cut to cut all the way through. So here is this super cute popsicle and it has a little bite out of it and I love it. I am going to make sure that this is nice and straight before I tape this down and run it through my die cut machine. So I'm lining that up at the bottom. I made it just big enough to die cut out this popsicle. And once I die cut this, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cute. It turned out so great. Sometimes, you know, you have a card or a element in mind and you just hope it's going to be as cute in real life. And it was. So there's that darling little popsicle. Now I have die cut from the nested ovals or the nested stitched ovals, and I'm using pumice stone and I'm just going back and forth. I'm not blending in a circle. I just want to create a little bit of texture on this background, and I'm using a dome foam blender tool, and it's just giving it it's ink blended, but not like the traditional ink blended look. It's just giving it a little bit of texture. So this is going to be directly behind our popsicle, and we're going to do more with that popsicle because we have to create our little tiny summer scene on there. Let's do a bit of splattering with that same pumice stone. So on my silicone mat, I smushed down some ink, added some water, and then with my paintbrush, I'm just going to splatter the background, giving it just a little something extra because I don't want a complete white background. And I'll show you why when we put together that popsicle. I'm going to do a little bit of distressing on the edge of this with my scissors. And then we can work on our background. I am using the sentiment Summer from the Hello Summer stamp set on an acrylic block with pumice stone. I am doing 2nd generation stamping on this background. I want to create a pattern, like a patterned paper on this background with the summer sentiment. And this paper is from the Sunshine Smooth cardstock. Sorry guys, Sunshine Smooth cardstock. So this does not need to be perfect. I was eyeballing everything. I think I did it pretty straight, which was a miracle, probably because I wasn't trying very hard. I think if I was trying really hard, I wouldn't be able to make it straight. So let me finish my last row. So the 2nd generation stamping, I'm stamping 1 time off on scratch paper and then stamping on my colored cardstock here. Now let's bring in some splatter. I am going to use, it's new to me, it's not new, scrapbook.com's white Lustre brush. And I'm going to squeeze out some of the liquid onto my work surface. I want to get that paintbrush really, really wet, and then I can splatter all over the background to give it a nice, just, I don't know, fun little distressed feel. But I love the bright white. To me, that has the feeling of a beachy scene, which is kind of what I'm creating. Okay, that popsicle is in the Misty. I am using the little palm tree and the birds. And I'm going to do some white heat embossing. So I'm prepping that with my anti-static powder tool, and then I'm going to use clear embossing ink. I do have my heat tool on so it can get nice and hot. I'm going to ink this up, I think 3 times. I really like to make sure I'm going to get a good solid image. Then I can sprinkle on my white embossing powder. And this is creating this tiny little easy scene, but this has all the fun 80s retro vibes, and I just absolutely love this card. I think this is one of my favorites. I have to put it on one of my favorite lists. I do have a few little pieces of stray embossing powder, so I'm taking a dry paintbrush and just getting that out of the way before I heat this up. And then I can bring my heat tool to that. And look at how cute that is. Oh, I love it. Then with a dry rag, once my heat embossing is cool, I'm just going to dust off the anti-static powder. Now let's adhere our popsicle together. I die cut the shadow piece from white mixed media cardstock, and the popsicle stick is die cut from the Neutrals smooth cardstock. So I'm going to line that up right at the bottom. And look at how cute it is. I think it's so pretty with that white frame. So pretty with that white frame. We have that in place. Isn't that so cute? And then let's use some of that white Lustre brush marker. And I'm only going to splatter a little bit. I don't want to go crazy with the splattering. I just want it in a few areas, but not a ton, just a little bit. And I was really debating, but I'm glad I splattered because it's so cute. Then the sentiment that I am going to be using is from the Hello Summer stamp set, and I'm going to ink that up with Pumice Stone Distress Oxide ink, and it says have a wonderful summer. That summer sentiment is the same one that we stamped on that background to create our fun little patterned paper background. And then I will use the coordinating dies to die cut out our sentiment, so I'm going to tape those in place, and then I can run that through my die cut machine. I did trim down our back panel with the stamping slightly smaller than an A2 size, and I'm going to take my scissors to that as well, just a little bit of distressing here. Now for the oval dies, I did die cut one slightly bigger than the one that we inked blended with Pumice Stone, but I kept that white and I did not distress that. So let's start getting our card put together. This is a white A2 size card base, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to center our paper right there in the middle. And then we're going to do a little bit of foam adhesive, of course, because I mean, would it be a card that I made without foam adhesive? No. So let's add some. I'm going to adhere this smaller oval to that larger white oval. We did not distress this one. And then I'm going to add foam adhesive behind the popsicle and the sentiment. And I just used, nope, I used 2mm foam adhesive for the sentiment and the popsicle. So let me just get that in place. And then I can center that right in the middle of that oval. And again, I added that pumice stone behind it. That way the white frame around the popsicle would pop. Otherwise it would just get lost on that background. And I think that's part of what makes this popsicle so cute, is having that white shadow frame around the edge. And then that's going to be centered. For some reason I thought I added adhesive behind it and I did not. And I'm going to add some foam adhesive, of course, behind my sentiments. 2mm. I was kind of deciding if I wanted to do my sentiments a different way, but I opted for top and bottom. I think it's perfect. This is one of those cards that I think it, you know, being symmetrical essentially looks good. So a little bit of tape runner here, place that in the center, and then we can put our our sentiments down, and then we'll take a look at this up close to see all of the goodness. But I love that little scene on the popsicle. I think it's so much fun. It is so summer to me, having a popsicle looking at the ocean, palm trees, birds. I mean, I just think it's so fantastic. So let's take a peek at this. I love that little bit of distressing, the splattering. Of course, that scene is cute, but the popsicle is just darling. And I love those stripes of that pattern paper, or that colored cardstock. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I hope you have a great day.